Welcome everyone to our LGBTQ+ Safe Zone training. My name is Lauren Wilson. I am with Lamar University's Office of Global Diversity and Inclusive Excellence. The purpose of this training is to assist students, staff, faculty in having a deeper familiarity and comfort with the vocabulary and inclusive practices for providing participants, and also providing participants with the opportunity to learn more about how to be better allies to those within the LGBTQIA+ community. Our goal is for participants to become more and more knowledgeable about the identities and the systems that they may not otherwise be aware of. So we are joined by our guest facilitator, Larneka Lavalais. Larneka, thank you so much for joining us. Larneka is a lifelong resident of Port Arthur, Texas, and she's several times an alumna from Lamar University with a Bachelor of Arts in Criminal Justice and Sociology, the Master's of Science degree in Applied Criminology, and a Master's of Education degree in Counseling and Development from Lamar University. Larneka is also a licensed professional counselor with experience as a psychotherapist for a nonprofit organization, outpatient behavioral health, and currently works as a behavioral and mental health counselor and an online therapist for Talkspace.com. And she's also the owner of her own part-time private practice. Larneka is involved in community outreach and advocates for the underserved in our community. She's the founder of My Story to Tell, Breaking the Cycle support group for the QTPOC Southeast Texas support group. Larneka also serves on the board of directors for TAN, or Triangle Area Network Healthcare. She's also joined Lamar for several other events in the past and is a great friend of several of us in the university. So thank you so much, Larneka, for joining us. We're so excited for the training. And I see that you've shared your screen, so we should be ready to go. So whenever you're ready, thanks so much.
All right, here, am I unmuted?
Yes, you're good.
Okay, here we go. All right, thank you so much. Thank you 100 times. I love Lamar, LU, go Big Red. That's me all day. So I'm honored to be here. So as mentioned, we will be discussing working with LGBTQ plus individuals, the stressors they endure, consequences and strategies. My pronouns are she, her, hers. Okay. All right, so our goals for today is to understand the stresses of LGBTQ individuals face, understand the language around LGBTQ plus, evidence-based data regarding LGBTQ plus youth, and learn how you can be an ally. All right, so here are some terms that we'll go over briefly. We'll break down LGBTQ plus because I can't always assume that everyone knows what that means. You know, with social media, technology, everything, one would assume, but we really cannot because there are those who just don't know. Heterosexual, homosexual, these are terms that have been around for ages. Bisexual, pansexual, transgender. We just had our what is it, transgender day of awareness. I know I'm messing it up. I'm trying to transgender day of visibility. There we go. So that was always great to celebrate our family on that end of the spectrum. Always good. Cisgender, binary and non-binary, sexual behavior, sexual orientation, gender identity and expression, homophobia, intersectionality, and heteronormative. These are some terms that have been around. Probably you've heard them used here and there for various reasons, and we'll go in depth a little bit more as to what they mean. All right, so starting off, we have the L in LGBTQ plus, basically stands for lesbian. And you can read what it says. Typically, cisgender females romantically, sexually, mentally, spiritually attracted to each other. All right. Gay, a person who's emotionally, physically, sexually, mentally, romantically, or spiritually oriented to bond and share affection with people of the same gender, usually associated with someone who is born as a male, cisgender male. Okay. Bisexual, a person who's emotionally, physically, sexually, mentally, romantically and or spiritually oriented to bind and share affection with more than one sex, gender, or gender identity, though not necessarily simultaneously in the same way or the same degree. All right, then we have the T for transgender or trans, term of many gender identities of those who do not identify or exclusively identify with their sex assigned at birth. The term transgender is not indicative of gender expression, sexual orientation, hormonal makeup, physical anatomy, or how one is perceived in daily life. Okay. And I think what I observe a lot, and I'm just going to interject sometimes because I do work in a public school, I work with the public, I advocate. I think the assumption is that because one is trans, that their sexual identity, as far as who they love, is connected in some way or another to something different. I think a lot of people get that mixed up, whether they're trans, maybe male to female trans, and they may date someone who could be a cisgender male, and then the assumption is, well, what's going on here, or a cisgender female, what's going on there? I thought they were trans. Well, yes, they can still be trans and date whomever they're attracted to. Okay. All right, queer. Queer is a term that was once used in a negative connotation, but I think it's been revived and used as a term of endearment. And basically, it's an umbrella. Many times I may identify as queer. I'm a lesbian. I may just say I'm a queer female. That's some ways I identify, and it's usually an umbrella term for the LGBTQ plus community. The word is still sometimes used as a hateful slur. So although it has mostly been reclaimed, be careful when you use it. If you are not a member of the community, and sometimes maybe if you are, it depends on who you're talking to, that term may not be readily accepted. So, be careful with that. Q also, at one point, I remember they were saying it was questioning. You have individuals who may not really know. They may want to see what's going on here. So questioning of one's gender, sexual identity, sexual orientation, or all three is a process of exploration by people who may be unsure, still exploring and concerned about applying a social label to themselves for various reasons. Sometimes people may say, I have no label. I just love who I love. You may have some younger kids trying to figure it out. Am I trans? No, maybe I'm not trans. Maybe I'm just gay. Maybe I'm just queer. Maybe I just won't have a label at all. I'll just be me. All right, and the I we have for intersex, describing a person with less common combinations of hormones, chromosomes, and anatomy that are used to assign sex at birth. The Klinefelter syndrome is an example, androgen insensitivity syndrome, and congenital adrenal hyperplasia are examples of intersex. All right, and the A for asexual or ally, the lack of sexual attraction and one identified with this orientation. This may be used as an umbrella term for other emotional attraction. I may not be physically attracted to people, but I just love everybody, or an ally, someone who advocates and support a community other than their own. Allies are not part of the community. They help. Now, in some cases, you could be part of the LGBTQ plus community and be an ally for one or the other. Although I identify myself as queer, I'm a lesbian, I am an ally for the trans community. I consider myself a big ally for the trans community. Not that they are separate, but I know there are some issues that the trans community deal with that I may not necessarily deal with, and I want to make certain that people are aware and advocate and bring visibility and everything that I can do to help support, the people in the trans community. All right, P, pansexual. Pansexual, capable of being attracted to any genders. Sometimes the term omnisexual is used in the same manner. Now, I know a lot of people tend to be confused with bisexual and pansexual. I think what happens with pansexual, it breaks the binary boundary. You know, with bisexual term, one would consider you're attracted to male, you're attracted to female. You know, one or the other, both, you know, male, female. And with pansexual, it breaks it. It's like whomever, whatever, that's what it is. Okay. Now, I know there have been stories in the news here lately, different, and I'm not going to get political, but just different agendas that are out there to oppress the trans community, things said that are just not true at all. And that would be considered part of transphobia, just like homophobia. People say and do things that are against people who are part of the LGBT community. People may specifically target those in the trans community to invoke hatred towards them. And transphobia is intense dislike of or prejudice against transsexual or transgender people. All right, so cisgender and transgender. Cisgender, basically someone who identify to the gender they were born to. I was born with the female gender, so I identified female, so I'm cisgender female. A transgender person is someone personal idea of gender does not correlate with his or her assigned gender role. They may have been assigned a female gender role at birth, but that's not the gender role they, you know, subscribe to. That's not what they're feeling. That's not who they are, you know, and it's just what it is. Okay, so for pronouns, when I introduced myself, I mentioned she, her, hers pronouns, but you have people who may go by different pronouns. You don't necessarily have to be transgender to have different pronouns. Whatever you feel, those are your pronouns. I think that in order to provide a safe place, a safe space, and to show that you're welcoming, you can ask if you feel that you know you need to. If it's a new space or you meet someone new, don't assume just because they appear whatever that their pronouns are going to subscribe to what you feel they traditionally or appear as. So if you hear people speak with they or them or theirs, that's okay. If a person tells you, excuse me, I don't go by female pronouns, or she, her, hers, I go by him, his, him, he, him, his, then you respect that, and that's okay as well. All right. So what are some of the stressors that are faced by LGBT youth? A lot of the stressors are lack of support, family issue, friends, school, religious communities. When a person in the LGBT community is trying to figure life out, as many of us do, we all go through a stage of development, trying to figure out, okay, who am I? And that's period. As human beings, we go through stages of development, period, trying to figure out who we are, what's going on, where we fit in life, in general, period, you know, point blank. And then when we're in the community, it's a little bit different, because we may not necessarily subscribe to the social norms and what society says we should be or not be. And when we try to explore that part of us, there are times when there's not someone cheering us on and saying, hey, be who you are. It's okay to, you know, do something different, wear your hair different, wear some different clothing, do something different, express yourself in a different way. Many times they want you to conform to the norms of society. you know, and not break those norms. So that can be stressful. That can cause a lot of mental anguish with students who don't have that support. Families, depending on their family, you know, and that ties into religious communities. Some families may be of religions that do not support the LGBT community at all. They believe it's a sin and all these other things that Lil Nas X put in his video. If y'all know who Lil Nas X is, and that recent video that has come out that have a lot of people talking about it, quite interesting. We can talk about it at the end if you like. But those are some of the stressors that are faced by the youth. Friends, maybe some friends they've had for a long time, they feel, well, if I come out to them, they may not be my friends anymore. People may shun them. You may even have bullying, even in this day and age with how society has changed some, and there's been equality and advancement and everything like that. You will still have some friends, they're friends, and it's more than likely they're getting it from parents. Parents are preaching all these things, you know, oh no, you can't hang with them when they're doing something different. They have two moms, I don't know, the boy's wearing a dress, you can't hang with them, you know, those sorts of things. And even with the schools, I've worked in several school districts and I've seen the lack of support. I've seen some serious homophobia at one. I'm happy to say that I do work at a district that supports the LGBTQ youth, and they have support groups on campus. So I'm really, really pleased with that. And I know Lamar has groups, and that's just awesome. That's awesome. All right. And some stats. Age 13 is the median age in which one realizes he or she is gay. Sometimes it could be a little earlier, but on average, about 13, you kind of figure it out like, okay, something's definitely going on. I got some hormones doing some things in some places where I didn't think that would happen. Okay. At 13, you know, where's the support? I remember when I was 13 in Port Arthur, Texas, you didn't have nothing. There was nothing. I think as I became an older teenager, I found out about the Copacabana in Beaumont. And we weren't old enough to get there, and it was definitely not a support group. So definitely to have something for the youth at that age is important. Okay, with no support, it leads to isolation, depression, possibly self-harming, and possible suicidal ideation. Okay, with the family, we talked about that. Families not supporting their kids and putting them out on the streets. You know, that's really awful. I couldn't imagine not supporting your child in anything that much at a young age, at any age really, putting them out. You have a lot of homeless youth out there. I'm not certain. I do a lot of work in the Houston area as well. And I know that there are many different places there, Grace's Place and Montrose Center, the Hatch program that are helpful. But I'm not 100% certain what we have in Southeast Texas. So that's another conversation to have. You know, I know we have support groups, but for the homeless specifically, you know, what do we have available? All right. Friends are not necessarily allies. We mentioned that. In the school, not having the support. Religious communities, we mentioned that. All right, and as mentioned, the consequences of these stresses, suicide. You have high suicide rates in the LGBT community. Kids dropping out of school. I don't want to go to school. I'm not going to college. I'm not going here because I'm not accepted. The teachers are looking at me funny. I can't wear my hair. I don't remember where this was. There was a kid that had, was it the nail polish? He had some nail polish and they wanted to put him out. I'm like, really? Nail polish? You got kids in the bathroom smoking all kinds of stuff. You're gonna put a kid out because of some nail polish? Okay. You know, and they were able to fight against that and get their kid back in school. But what if they were not? What if they hadn't been able to expose that just silliness, putting a kid out for fingernail polish, and now he wouldn't be able to go to school or have to conform to, well, let me take my polish off and not be able to be who I am, when the girls can wear polish as much as they want. There was no rule against polish. It was just this young man wearing nail polish. All right, we mentioned about suicide. Okay. Some more stats. Sexual orientation is not often collected in public health statistics. I think now they're some places you might see some things on there where you can fill out your applications if you're going for doctor's visits. Some have on there about orientation or either gender identity. But traditionally, some places still do not have it. So it's difficult to keep the stats on, the different things that are going on there. Okay. We're going to pass through these stats. Additional pressures. All right. So discovering themselves, those are pressures, trying to figure out who they are, coming out to peers, family, school, religious abuse, reparative therapy. Now they have outlawed that, but you still have some institutions that subscribe to reparative therapy or conversion therapy, where they figure they can pray the gay away or get it out of you, or that doesn't happen. If you're gonna send your child to therapy because they're questioning, send them because you're allowing them to have that safe space to figure it out. If they're feeling suicidal in any way, you have someone to teach them coping techniques, so they, won't feel that harming themselves is the way to deal with the stuff that's going on around them, not to try to change them. As a therapist, I've had people come to me when they find out that I indicate that I work with LGBT issues. And it's like, oh, I got, my niece, and, she doing this and doing that. I'm like, okay, well, I can talk with her. Yeah, because we don't want her to be. I'm like, well, no, I'm not talking to her like that. I want her to feel comfortable with whom she is and have that safe space to discover whatever it is that she wants to do. Okay. All right. So what are some ways that we can support? Support the youth where they are, having, I say on school campuses, and slowly but surely they're trying to get some. Listen to them, don't be judgmental. A lot of times that I've found working at a high school, kids will express stuff, express their feelings and everything they're dealing with in essays, in their English essays, even college essays. We saw some interesting stuff with their college essays, with kids talking about all sorts of things. And if you're an English teacher or someone in that capacity where students are expressing how they're feeling, who they feel they are at that time, or who they know they are during that time, just listen to them. If they're upset because family or church is giving them a hard time, be open-minded. It may not be, it's nothing, I can't tell a kid to go against their parents, but I could be there to listen to them and understand and give them that support where we are. Okay. P flag. We have a P flag in Beaumont. There are P flags. They're all over, really. There are national levels of P flags. Parents, family members of lesbians and gays, P flags, been around for a long time, and very good support group. And you have gay straight alliances. These are GSAs that are on campus, on school campuses. And I didn't plug my own little group. My QTPOC is Queer Trans People of Color support group that I have in Southeast Texas. We've kind of taken a little bit of a hiatus because of COVID, but hopefully vaccines and things and numbers go down, we'll be able to resurrect QTPOC and get started. All right, so more stats. I see what time it is. We're going to go through the stats a little bit. Different ways to support. We've said that on campuses have supportive staff, your GSA, and anti-bullying laws. If someone is bullying the students because of their sexual identity, sexual orientation, what have you, they should have the same consequences as someone bullying a student for anything else. And what constitutes bullying, those are things that we should be aware of. I'm not going to throw my opinion out there. move forward. All right, homelessness, as mentioned before, we do have a large percentage of LGBT youth forced to leave their homes. 20 to 40% of homelessness unaccompanied youth are LGBT. You know, sometimes people are homeless, adults are homeless with their kids, and then you have kids by themselves who the parents have kicked them out. Okay. And with the homelessness increases the chances of risky behavior. What happens when you see a kid on the street? You got some predator out there, probably, hey kid, you need somewhere to stay. And then they're unfortunately forced into sex trafficking or who knows what to survive. You know, and that's why it's most important to have some support out there for them so they don't get caught up in those things. I know it's more than likely coming up, but substance, there we go. Substance use, chemical abuse is very high in the LGBT community. And what's happening is the people are self-medicating. You know, the mental anguish that's faced with the lack of support and all of these things that occur, the stressors, they're needing something to help them cope. More than likely, they're not going to the doctor, they're not seeing a psychiatrist, they hadn't got to that point to understand you're dealing with depression, you're dealing with anxiety, and this is something that can help you. Turning to alcohol, turning to drugs, those are tools used to self-medicate to cope with the mental anguish. Okay, and ways to support their prevention, intervention programs, you know, reach out to the LGBT youth specifically. You know, no one needs to use drugs or alcohol to cope with anything they're dealing with, but there are issues that the LGBT community face that the average youth do not. And so having programs available for people who, you know, who fit into that particular category to address the specific needs can be very helpful and is important. All right, HIV and AIDS risk is increased by denial of sexual identity, unsafe sex, substance abuse, having to exchange sex for money, and isolation. And different ways to support, help the youth as they come out, have a safe space, help them to come out in a healthy way. And even for the families, I kind of jumped over PFLAG, but that was one of the main missions, that is one of the main missions for PFLAGs for family members. Sometimes the parents don't really understand, what is this, you know, what is PAN? I don't know what that is. Why is my child dressing differently? They say they're non-binary. I don't understand what that is. And excuse me, for parents who just really want to understand, and maybe we're dealing with their own mental anguish because my religion tells me I'm supposed to be like this and my family should be like that. And my child is coming to me saying, well, no, I'm this. You know, they may have their own stuff they're dealing with. And so if they're willing and open to understanding and getting the support, there's PFLAG. That's what PFLAG does. And so helping the families, you know, come together and support each other and support their LGBTQ youth is important. Okay. And sex education for LGBTQ. It's funny how, you know, when you, well, I don't know if they really have sex ed anymore. You can find everything you need online. But when I was a kid and we had sex ed, it was just what's happening with the male, what's happening with the female. And when they come together, use protection. They didn't tell you about the other stuff, you know. To females, we do have prophylactics. Is that the correct big term to use? For using female condoms and things like that for safe sex, different things that you can do to be safe. If you have two males coming together, things that they can use to be safe, how to have sex in a safe, healthy way. They don't talk about those things. They just talk about man and woman, do this, don't do that type of thing. So having that sex education specific for LGBTQ youth is important. All right. Yeah, just don't have sex, you won't get nothing, okay? I mentioned intersectionality a little bit earlier. That was a term we use. Let me back up a little bit. And for LGBTQ plus, youth of color, there are other variables that come into play when one discovers themselves finding their identity, finding their way of life. When you look at specific communities of color, you have other things going on. For instance, if you look at Black trans women in our country, Black trans women have been murdered at higher numbers than probably any. I'll go out there and say, and y'all can tap me on the hand without having the statistics, then you hear about women, cisgender women, being murdered in the same manner. Okay, and this is an issue at hand. There are many variables surrounding what one can allege happens in that situation, but nevertheless, lack of resources could be one. The victims being misgendered, the support. In some cases, perhaps the women may have had to go to the streets in order to work, and then they're criminalized, and then they're abused, and then unfortunately someone wants to take their lives. That's not every situation, but in some situations that has occurred. So keep in mind, if you're dealing with LGBTQ youth of color, there are just cultural things and some things that they deal with. Black males being harassed by the police, and I'm gay. Okay, so those things are topics. That's why I started my group, Queer Trans People of Color, QTPOC Southeast Texas, to have that safe space to address some of those issues that are specific to communities of color. Okay. And we understand that gender, transgender and gender nonconforming youth, whether the genderbread person, and there was a unicorn that kind of explains. Some people think, well, if you have this particular sex organ, you should be this, or you should, do this, or if you're this gender, if you're identifying with this gender, that means you're dating this person, not the other person. So that's just kind of an illustration to get an understanding of gender orientation and sex. Okay, trans youth, this is one big that I'm seeing in the schools, being misgendered. If a student asks you, can you please refer to me as he, him, his pronouns, even though you may see me appear as a female, but these are the gender that I would like to be identified as, just go ahead and do that. Because sometimes I've seen teachers say, well, if your name is William, do you go by Bill? Yeah, call me Bill. Now, if you can call that kid Bill, and if someone else says, I would like to be called by this particular name, my name is not Susan anymore, my name is Jeff, call him Jeff. You're gonna call William Bill, call other one what they're asking you to call them as. Access to healthcare, rejection, bullying and harassment, gender dysphoria, and depression. I know there are some clinics now, I can think off the top of my head, Legacy and Tan, where transgender individuals can go in and not have to deal with this misgendering and mislabeling. Some of your mainstream clinics and hospitals, you may not have that. And that's something that truly needs to be addressed in order to provide that safe space for them. Okay. And once again, we say don't make assumptions about what you think they should be identified as or whatnot. Okay. Create a safe space in an open environment, be informed, and examine your own beliefs. If your beliefs say one thing, that's fine, but as you work in the community and you help other people, you work with youth, you work with people, you have to put your beliefs, your personal beliefs to the side and do what's best for the people that you are serving. You can still have your belief, you can believe whatever you want to believe, as long as those beliefs don't bleed on to the people that you're serving and to oppress anyone and cause more mental anguish, you know, that wouldn't be good. All right, let's see. We mentioned about creating a supportive environment. People are respected for who they are, no matter their gender, ethnicity, religion, or sexual orientation. Have zero tolerance for slurs or harassment. If you hear the kids laughing at somebody and pointing out at them or saying something to them, you know, discipline them the same way you would discipline with anything else. Or, you know, have that conversation as to why you should not bully, why you should not use slurs, why you should not laugh at someone that you feel is different or whatnot. And use gender neutral language. If you don't know, you know, we assume him, he, his, sir, ma'am. You know, I'm a court author, and everybody is yes, sir, no, ma'am. But I have learned I need to not do that because I'm assuming that, you know, this is what the person identify as. So, you know, I have to catch myself by just saying yes, because that ma'am and sir want to come out real badly. But, you know, until someone says it's okay, or, you know, tell me their pronouns. And then even with that, I read an article somewhere. We can't assume that they're going by those terms. If I call somebody my brother or my sister or something like that, we can't assume. So it's always safe to ask. Okay. All right. Do we have any questions? I know the last part I kind of went through for the sake of time, but we already had been elaborating on that as well.
Thank you so much, Larneka. So there aren't any in chat. If you do have questions in chat, go ahead and enter those in now, and I'll go ahead and moderate those for Larneka. I had a question of myself that I ask of a lot of our speakers is, do you have any favorite resources that you like to turn to kind of learn more, or to stay current, or to know how to get involved? Just favorite things that you like to maybe follow on Facebook or just keep track of that you'd like to share?
I am in so many organizations on Facebook. Montrose Center is good. They have good information there. Oh Lord, I'm trying to think of everybody, because I follow everything. LGBTQ Nation has some good information there. GLAD always has some good statistics. If you need some stats, there's always GLAD. You know, I'll turn to GLAD and get some things there. And that's all off of the top of my head, those that stand out. But like I said, I follow anything queer that's on social media. I you know, sometimes I just don't even watch the regular news. I'm just seeing what we're talking about in the community.
Sure. No, I love that grassroots energy. I'm all in the LGBTQ memes and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Cool. And you know I'm in. We try and organize lots of different diversity events and programming to help people sort of learn about LGBTQ identities and experiences. Do you have any favorite sort of events or programs that you've seen, either in education or just in general, that you've especially enjoyed or thought were particularly impactful?
I think Pride celebrations are. I know we have one in Beaumont, and I know Houston has theirs. And I've had the opportunity to participate with both. And I think that both are very helpful. And they're not just the parades and the celebration and the, hey, it's not just that. They're very informative. There are a lot of informational things that are out there that are helpful. Everything's online now because of COVID, but you know, that's helpful because you can get to some places to learn a bit more in areas that you don't necessarily live in. So I think that's really helpful. But the Pride celebrations, the Pride entities themselves provide just that togetherness, that awareness, that support, that, hey, be you, do you, it areas, you know, so I think those are great.
No, those are great. In chat, we did have a question from Kyra Rost. How would you suggest uplifting people who identify with micro labels? I found that people who identify with less well-known identities tend not to speak up for themselves for lack of awareness.
Same as the others. Give them that support, understanding, allow them to express themselves however they choose to, and you know, just be open-minded. Become an ally, learn more. You know, learn more so you can support them and help them to intertwine with the mainstream. Like, hey, you have a place here too. Everybody has a place.
And from Stephanie Allen, we have, she says, regarding pansexuality, the best way I've heard it described is gender isn't really a determining factor. The attraction is to the person, not to the gender. I would love my wife just the same if she was a male, for example.
Awesome. Yes.
And Stephanie also asked if it would be possible if you could share your PowerPoint with us, or you could just share it with me and I can make that available to everyone, if that would be
Sure. Because if we were face to face, I'm that old teacher. I'd have handouts. I'd be passing out handouts to everyone. But definitely.
Love that. Okay, great. Other than that, did you have any stories that you'd like to share about maybe something about LGBTQ plus issues that maybe people that don't experience those issues wouldn't notice or wouldn't, I don't know, maybe immediately be in their realm of experience? I just wondered, I feel like counselors didn't have the best stories, but if you had any anecdotes.
Let's see. I have so many stories. I'm trying to pick one. Something uplifting or more awareness. Which one you want? Say it again.
I said dealer's choice, whichever one you want.
Dealer's choice. Okay. Something that we experience. I think one of my personal experiences that I have. I am a bit more masculine of center. That means even though I am a cisgender female, I go by female pronouns. Sometimes I like to dress in male clothing. And in the African American community, when one goes to church, females should dress a certain way. And it can be a little disheartening. Now, some religions, they don't want you to wear pants, and that's a whole different thing. But just your presentation at church, they believe it should be a certain way. And I know one of the things that I had difficulty with when I finally came into my authentic self and said, this is me, this is what I like. Easter Sunday, I wanted to go to church, but I didn't want to wear the yellow dress. So I had to really figure out how I was going to do that and still be me, how to work. I still subscribe to religion. I still, worship. But I wanted to worship as myself. I didn't want to put the yellow dress on for Easter. So I know that's something that, many people probably don't really think about or consider, but it's something that some people deal with in the community. My remedy to that, I went to sunrise service, which is like at 5:30 in the morning, Easter Sunday. I found somebody having it. Typically, they don't really bother what you're wearing because people are up and sleepy and they just want to worship. And so I found myself going to a church that I probably wouldn't have ordinarily gone to just because it's a Baptist thing, we clannish. But I went because I wanted to worship on Easter Sunday as myself and not have to worry about wearing the yellow dress. So that's one story right there. Sometimes if you see people dressed a certain way at church, let them make it. They're at church. The reason we're there is to worship, not to worry about what you're wearing. That's one there. So, I have a recent story of a student who, according to their term, trans questioning. Okay, hey. This student also has some mental anguish, a lot of mental health issues. And the administrators at their particular campus, I think they assumed that the mental anguish and things that this student was experiencing had to do with the trans questioning. We had to continue to say, no, these are two different things going on here. So I think sometimes that happens. If someone's in the community, they assume that everything that's going on is just because they're in the community, not necessarily a byproduct of whatever else might just be going on in their lives, but the stressors of having to come out and be their authentic selves don't help. It adds to whatever it is that they're dealing with. So I don't know if those were good stories, but those were some stories that came to mind.
That's really helpful. We do have a couple more in the chat. One person asked, you raised a great point. Where to turn for support at age 13. I found support for my worldview at that age through reading books like Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret. Could you recommend great books sharing any LGBTQ plus worldviews that would be helpful for 13-year-olds looking for support? I know that's a wide range, yet any that might be popular as starting points.
None that comes to mind, but give me a little time. I can research and find some for you. Typically, my books are, I don't have any up here in my home. Some in my office, mainly counseling the LGBT community. That's what I'm reading. that's what I'm reading. Sure. Because I am a member of the community does not mean I know the experience of everyone in the community. So I'm typically reading the different subcategories and scenarios of different things that people are faced with. Bibliotherapy is not my strong point. I can get you some movies to watch. I can find some YouTubes for you that would be interesting and helpful. But for a 13-year-old, I have to really look and see what's recommended and then kind of read over it and see.
Sure. Okay, great. And then Stephanie Allen also shared that PFLAG hosts a Pridecast Zoom meeting twice a month, and the details are on PFLAG's Beaumont Facebook page. And local drag queens are the ones that host the show. So I just want
to
group.
Awesome. Yes, I didn't get a chance. I was interviewed, but we recorded my interview for one of them. I didn't get a chance to participate, but I think that's awesome. That is very awesome.
Super, super cool. Okay, great. Well, I think that's the end of the comments in chat. Did you have anything else that you'd like to share, Larneka? We greatly appreciate your presence here. But anything else that you'd like to add to the end?
Just continue to be open-minded, continue to be supportive. You have a lot of young people out there who are hurting because they don't have the support that that they need. And if you be a great ally, if you see folks, bullying, even adults can bully kids, stand up, be that voice for them that they really, really need. Social media is a decent way to learn and understand. They got some good stuff out there now, and they got some other stuff, but they really do have some good stuff out there. It's very informative. Follow me on social media, Larneka Lavalais, LPC, PLLC, QTPOC Southeast Texas. I'm on Instagram and I'm on Facebook. I typically share like whatever there is going on that I'm aware of. I try to share it to one of my pages so community awareness, people to get involved and to help out the community. So that's basically what I have. Be open-minded, be supportive. They need you. The community needs you. That safe space is very, very important. So.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much again to everybody joining us. I just wanted to kind of give an update on a couple of things that you can look forward to in the future. We've also got an ally presentation from ally to accomplice, kind of talking about going from entry-level allyship to thinking like an accomplice. So being more sort of active and genuine in your allyship. That'll be on April 15th. You can register for that the same way that you registered for this through our diversity dialogue. So that's on our website. think it's lamar.edu/diversity dialogues, all one word. April 23rd will be the Day of Silence, where we are asking people across campus to take a pledge of silence for the day, along with GLSEN, GLSEN. And that is to raise awareness about the issues that LGBTQ+ people face, especially students in school, and the silencing and erasure there. So if you'd like to take part in that, we have stickers in our office, and they're super cool. I don't have an example right now, but I did take a picture and put them on the website. So if you want to see what they look like, you can go see there and just let me know, and I'll find a way to get one to you. You can either come by our office, or if you're on campus at some point, I can certainly, bring them to your office as well. So we're really excited about that. I think also we have a student group, our LGBTQ+ students of Lamar, run by the wonderful and amazing Alex Whitney. So if you are interested in that group, or if you want to, if you know anybody who might be interested in that group, you can certainly reach out to Alex. They are very findable, I think, on the Facebook. I think it's LGBTQ of Lamar, but you can definitely Google it and it comes up first try. So yeah, those are our upcoming events in the near future. But other than that, if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me. As long as Larneka is okay with it, we're going to try and make this video available for folks who'd like to access this later on, or if you'd like to share it with anyone. But other than that, thank you everyone, and especially thank you, Larneka, for joining us tonight. This has been really helpful and really exciting for Lamar as we move forward. So thanks everybody, and hope everybody has a wonderful evening and Easter weekend.